Welcome to this session. Today we're going to cover authentication and single sign-on for Oracle Utilities Digital Self-Service. After completing this lesson, you should be able to understand the supported options for authentication and single sign-on, or SSO. You'll understand key concepts for digital self-service portal authentication. And finally, you'll understand how portal users are linked to customer-to-meter account and person entities. First, let's discuss options for authentication and single sign-on. There are several different components associated with authentication. Oracle and the utility share responsibility for these components differently, depending on the identity management system used by the utility. If the utility is using Oracle Identity Cloud Service, or IDCS, as their identity management system, the Oracle Digital Self-Service team has ownership of the registration, login, profile management, and password reset and recovery web pages. If the utility is using a third-party identity management system, the utility is responsible for these components. If the utility is using IDCS, the Oracle IDCS team is responsible for identity management and password policies, where the utility is responsible for these components if they use a third-party identity management system. Regardless of which identity management system is used, Oracle and the utility share the ownership of the authentication configuration component. The utility is the main owner of the IDCS Administrator Console, and they hand off the client ID and client secret for the Oracle team to store. Finally, the utility is responsible for any optional web user migration, regardless of the identity management system being used. Utilities that use Oracle IDCS as their identity management system are able to provide a seamless experience to their customers. The customer never interacts directly with IDCS on the web. The integration between digital self-service and IDCS is all on the back end, and the OAuth assertion authenticates a web user ID, group, and identifying information. OAuth 2.0 is a standard for implementing delegated authorization. Authorization is based on the access token required to access a resource. The access token can be issued for a given scope, which defines what the access token can do and what resources it can access. Now let's discuss single sign-on and security assertion markup language, or SAML. SAML is an XML-based system for authentication and authorization between a service provider and an identity provider. SAML uses a standard single sign-on format where authentication information is exchanged through digitally signed XML documents. Customers typically interact with the utility identity provider and are redirected to digital self-service. Setting up SAML SSO is a shared task completed by the Oracle delivery team in conjunction with the utility. The utility provides the secure IDs to the Oracle team, who completes the configuration steps that can't be completed in the identity provider console. For more information or to review the detailed setup steps, see the Authentication Configuration Guide in the Digital Self-Service Transactions Library, which is available in the Oracle Help Center at docs.oracle.com. Now let's talk about some key concepts for digital self-service portal authentication. The first concept you need to understand is web user identity. A unique web user identifier is required for your business to provide a basis for security and authorization. Different types of users will access your website, including anonymous users, registered users with a username and password, and registered users that are linked to a person or account entity in your system. Registered users that are linked to their accounts and who have completed the identity verification questions have access to pay their utility bills and manage their accounts online. Web user records are mastered in the identity management system regardless of whether the utility is using Oracle IDCS or a third-party identity management system. The identity management system is used to maintain ownership of the web user identity and web user authentication. The identity provider will provide the trusted SAML 2.0 SSO token to digital self-service after the web user has provided satisfactory authentication credentials. Security for SAML is achieved through several mechanisms. First, SAML assertions from the identity provider must be digitally signed with the identity provider's private key using an XML signature. Oracle utilities will then verify the source with the corresponding public key. Assertions that fail this verification process are rejected. This mechanism ensures that only assertions originating from the proper utility client are accepted. Only a reference to the target URL is found in the token to prevent the URL from being tampered with. Furthermore, data is encrypted via HTTPS during transfer. The next concept you'll want to understand is the federated SAML single sign-on. Federation refers to the trust relationship that exists between organizations. It is concerned with where the user credentials are stored and how trusted third parties can authenticate against those credentials without actually seeing them. Federated identity management allows a utility's identity management system to maintain ownership of the web user identity and web user authentication. It provides a secure SAML token from a trusted partner to a service provider that says, "This person has been identified as customer X and is a trusted user." No password is required for the user to log into each system because of the trust between the two systems. Therefore, the target application accepts this token as coming from a trusted source. This graphic depicts the transactional view of the SAML single sign-on. The user initiates the login request from the digital self-service portal. The identity management system creates the SAML token, and the user is then able to access both the DSS portal and the other systems, such as Customer to Meter, without having to perform an additional logon. Oracle supports two SAML profiles: Identity Provider Single Sign-On and Service Provider Initiated Sign-On. With the Identity Provider or Utility Initiated Single Sign-On, customers log into the utility site and then navigate to the digital self-service site using specific links that initiate single sign-on on the DSS site. With Service Provider Initiated Sign-On, customers have an enhanced user experience, which enables bookmarking and direct redirection of protected resources. This also handles timeout redirection. The user visits the digital self-service site first, logs into the utility site, and is sent back to digital self-service automatically. Users can then bookmark pages in the digital self-service site. Now let's talk about our last main concept, linking portal users to Customer to Meter account and person entities. First, you must understand what a Customer to Meter or C2M web user is. There are two Customer to Meter maintenance objects that link web users in the identity management system to the Customer to Meter system. They are the account record and the person record. There should be a one-to-one link between the identity manager and the Customer to Meter web user. A Customer to Meter web user is the logical child of a person record in the C2M system. A web user can connect to an account if they are the main person on the account. To provide access to an account or to allow other users to maintain commercial accounts or accounts of family members, the other user must be invited by the main account holder. Entity relationship diagrams can help us understand the relationships between multiple entities in the system. First, let's look at the relationship between account and person records. It's important to remember that an account references one or more persons. One of these persons must be designated as the main person. Digital self-service supports additional persons who are associated with an account, but they must be invited by the main person. A person can have many accounts, and an account can be linked to many persons. Bills are produced for an account and are sent to the appropriate persons on the account. the main person always receives a copy of the bill, and they can indicate which other persons should receive a duplicate copy of the bill. An account may have many bill messages, and a bill message may be associated with many accounts. An account belongs to a customer class, such as a commercial account or a residential account. A customer class might have many accounts. Finally, keep in mind that every account has a unique system-assigned account ID. Now let's take a look at web users and how they fit into the picture. Web users are unique objects related to persons and are typically linked to one person record. The web user email is stored in the person contact. Web users typically log into digital self-service with the web user email address, and the web user object is stored in Oracle IDCS or the third-party identity manager. If a web user has been invited to access the account by the main person of an account, they have an account-person self-service relationship type. Utilities that have an existing identity management system that stores the relationship to the account and person record can pre-populate users via a data migration so that their web user accounts are created for them when digital self-service is launched. This slide lists the object names that you will need to complete this migration. In summary, today you learned about the options for enabling single sign-on with the digital self-service portal. You learned the basics of SAML single sign-on integration. And you understand how web users are stored in the customer-to-meter system and that they are linked to account and person records. For more information or to review the detailed setup steps, see the Authentication Configuration Guide in the Digital Self-Service Transactions Library, which is available in the Oracle Help Center at docs.oracle.com. We hope that this information has been useful and that you have a better understanding of the digital self-service authentication process. Thanks for watching.